Let's say you've decided on pursuing a STEM program. How do you prepare financially for this? STEM programs might be a little longer than other graduate programs out there. Most STEM programs are 2 years in duration. So let's discuss a few resources that you have when it comes to considering forms of funding for your graduate program. Now, you first need to consider whether a university has programs that are STEM designated. When researching universities on the web, you can search for lists of STEM designated programs. Every university out there tends to organize their STEM designated programs on one page. So you should first make sure that you locate this page on the different university websites that you are resourcing, because this way you can understand what types of business, science, technology, and engineering programs are out there for you. You can then proceed again to determine what types of funding they offer. So if we take a look at one of the first forms of funding that many institutions use, these are institutional fellowships. Now, institutional fellowships can come in different forms. There can be master's scholarships. There could be doctoral fellowships. And these scholarships or fellowships may be based on academic achievement or research. When you're doing your research for graduate programs, graduate schools, and of course funding, you need to make sure that you familiarize yourself with the application requirements of these scholarships and of these fellowships. Some institutions might have separate applications for you to consider when you are applying for a graduate program. Other institutions might not need you to submit new applications for these scholarships and fellowships. There might be certain deadlines that you have to keep in mind. For example, at Stevens, I know that we have preferred application deadlines if you are looking for particular funding, okay? So application requirements and deadlines are one of the first important questions that I encourage you all to consider and to make sure you're asking when talking to universities about their forms of funding. You also want to consider the funding details, okay? There will be a stipend, there could be tuition and fees coverage. The awards, whether they be scholarships or fellowships, could be different in duration, meaning that sometimes there are scholarships that only cover the first year of your graduate studies. Sometimes there are fellowships that cover the entire duration of your PhD program. So you need to familiarize yourself, again, with the duration of the awards. You have to ask yourself, is this going to cover 1 year of my studies, or is this going to cover 2 years, or is it going to cover the entire program? So you can prepare accordingly with other forms of funding. You also need to understand the terms. There are many scholarships and fellowships that will require you to enroll for certain credits, okay? So you want to make sure that in addition to accepting the scholarship or fellowship, that you are abiding by the terms so that you do receive the award for the 1 year or 2 years that it was given to you. Now, here are some expert tips to remember, again, when it comes to fellowships, which could be in either scholarship format or fellowship format. Again, take time to learn about eligibility from different admission offices. As you're doing your research with different institutions, again, ask them the questions with regards to application requirements and deadlines. Also ask them eligibility, right? Understand your chances. If there are scholarships and fellowships that will be awarded on the basis of academic achievement, ask for what is the minimum GPA, or ask for the minimum GRE or GMAT score that you should consider. These are ways to understand, again, your probability in securing this type of funding. Lastly, after understanding the probability that you will receive either scholarships or fellowships, make sure that you have a list of alternative funding sources. Keep in mind that not all universities have much institutional funding. So you will be required to consider other forms of funding outside of those scholarships or fellowships that are offered by the institution. Okay?
Okay, so we're gonna also present to you 4 other ways to help fund your degree. So the second one is graduate assistantships. So there are typically 2 types of assistantships. You have research and teaching assistantships. The research assistantships, they allow you to engage in research under faculty member supervision. So this is a great experience that you can have to add on your resume if you do end up receiving a research assistantship during your studies. This can come in the form of payment towards tuition or a stipend, which is like getting a paycheck as if you're working a regular job. It's up to 20 hours a week during the semester. And some continued expert tips for research assistantships are to learn the eligibility from the admissions office. So the same way that Amanda mentioned about basic eligibility to get a scholarship, you also want to inquire about how to make yourself competitive to receive a research assistantship. Also, since this is this entails research, you do want to see what is available at the school, what types of research, what kind of faculty are in charge of this research. So you are going to have to practice building your network even within the school, because this is going to, 1, allow you to use those skills for your future, but 2, to also know fully what the research includes and who it's run by. So yeah, and that's the last point, to build a relationship with your faculty members. So those are people like your professors, their TAs, if you come across their TAs. That's the first step in building that relationship. And the second form of assistantship is the teaching assistantships. Here, typically, you're assisting a professor with teaching an undergraduate course or lab. And I've even seen them also assisting in the graduate courses as well. So there is a lot of flexibility and opportunity in that. And the payment for this is also the same. It could be a payment towards the tuition or a stipend. And it can, in this case, it'll vary depending on how many courses you work with the professor and how many times those courses meet. And some further tips on this, they are also quite similar to the research assistantship, but you do want to know your eligibility. You also want to think about undergraduate courses that you performed well in. So you can use that to your advantage, which can help you, because a lot of these positions may require an interview. So that can help you in your interview and, also in just performing well with the faculty and with their students, because that's very important, And lastly, as well, it's important to build your network while even from the first day. It's never too early to, introduce yourself to professors and start that relationship. The third form of assistance is on-campus employment, or graduate administrative assistantships. So this is great, especially because for me and Amanda, we work on one big floor with different departments, and we hire a lot of assistants, or graduate assistants, and they actually do a great job. And this really, they've always told us that they gained a lot of experience working on the floor, getting some exposure to what it's like to work in the US, because a lot of them are also international students as well. So really, it's an on-campus job, and this can go across a different variety of departments. So it could be in admissions, it could be in a library, it could be within the specific school, like our systems and enterprise school or school of business. So the good thing is that there is a lot of opportunity, specifically at Stevens, because we're a tiny school, but we do, offer a lot of positions. So most of our students do get a fair chance to apply and, of course, land a job. The F1 student visa regulation, this will only allow you to work 20 hours per week during your school year, or at least during an active semester. And I believe during the summer, it's increased to 33. So, that's a good thing. So while you're here in the summer, and if you don't go back home, you can still hang on to these jobs, work more hours, and make some more money. And that's always a good thing, right? And this is like a regular paycheck. So your payment is every 2 weeks as a separate check. And a lot of jobs in general, they do provide a bi-weekly paycheck. So some tips for the on-campus positions is visit the Student Employment Office web pages and learn about their requirements and application process. So at Stevens, for example, we do have a student employment page, and they're very active, and then they let you know how to apply, where everything is for you to submit your application, how to look, how to search for the different jobs that you're interested in. So most schools may have this website, so that's something to consider. You can just write student employment in the search box, and I'm sure it'll come up for you. Again, building relationships with faculty members and staff on campus. You know, for example, when you come to a new school, the first people you're probably meeting when you're checking in is the admissions staff, like me, Amanda, and I. So that's, you know, and we love seeing our students and helping them out and giving guidance throughout the year. So that's another way to connect with the faculty, even if we're not professors on campus. And this is very important. This is Amanda's tip, actually, is to be persistent and be patient. We really do. It is important that you do submit and you follow up with the departments, because you never know when things change in a certain position. So, you know, students leave, students can get an internship at another place. So you never know when there's going to be a vacancy, even if it was taken before. So it is very good to follow up, you know. In worst case scenario is that it's not open. Best case scenario is that it is open. So it doesn't hurt to be persistent and to be patient. The fourth one, and this is a big one considering with everything going on now, but the CPT and OPT opportunities. And this is the advantage that you get from being a STEM program, is you do in general get some time for internship opportunities to get real life experience with real companies, which really down the line do hire a lot of their students that interned with them. So the first thing to consider when you're looking into CPT and OPT is how long your STEM program is. And Amanda touched on this point earlier. Is it a 1 year, a 1.5 year, or a 2-year program? And this matters because this is what's going to really build your schedule and when you would be getting these internships. So for the 1-year programs, which is typically like a 2 semesters or 4 quarters, it's usually within 1 year, of course. The program contains practical components such as industry projects and the quality of placement services for success post-graduation. So this is probably a lot of, and I actually am a student currently, so you do get a lot of real-time projects within your classes that you get to work on. And actually, one example that I love to document when we're on campus is the business intelligence analytics students. They have a huge presentation that they do once a semester called the poster presentations. And what they do is in their classes, they take on a real life business problem for very big industries. And actually, I remember one example of a group of 4 students. They did it on the fire department, and they created this new like algorithm to measure how close each fire hydrant is to the station. What's the fastest way to get to fires that are in certain areas. It was very interesting because it's not something you would really think of that needs this kind of analysis, but it was, and they submitted it, and it was in London, by the way, and they submitted this information and they got an award for it. So there is so much opportunity just within your classes alone. The second thing is the 1.5 year program, and this really, because it's 3 semesters, which means you have 1 typical semester, summer break, and then you're most likely the fall semester afterwards. So within that summer of the 1 year and the 1 semester, that's the time that you would be able to have your internship. And then the 2-year program, you have your 1 year, your 2 semesters, and then the second year. So in that summer between the 2 full years, that's when you would also probably have your internship as well. So that's the reason why you have to keep in mind how long the program is, because If it's a 1.5 or 2 years, it's in that summer in between your semesters. And then if it's 1 year, it's probably going to come from the classes that you have. So some tips to land a CPT or OPT internship: engage with the Career Services Center, the Graduate Student Life, and the Academic Support Centers for the different career prep workshops. This is very important because these are 3 different departments that all provide a lot of networking opportunities, people that they know, tips to prepare you for interviews and how to connect. The Career Services Center actually is a very key component in this, because, for example, at Stevens, the School of Business has their very own Career Services Center. So they are very well tailored for our international students they teach you guys from A to Z how to prepare and land that internship. So from resume building to skills to understanding the business culture of a specific industry. So it's good to know these types of names and departments, so you can also research it on the different schools' websites. And you'll also see the faculty listed, so you can always shoot any of these people an email to ask them questions in advance, which is, I highly recommend that you do. So you can see that networking, and I always say this in every presentation, I think besides the hard skills that you gain at Stevens, it's really the networking skills that's going to make the biggest difference in your career once you land the job and after you land the job and work your way up. So this is just to continue highlighting the services matter. It's good to really see, what kind of career services they do offer, and also the location, because, for example, Stevens is in Hoboken, New Jersey, but this is our campus picture. Right across the river is New York City. Sorry, I wish I could give you a better picture, but right across is the city. So for us, we take full advantage of partnering up with a lot of 500 companies. We bring them on campus for career fairs. So there's, so it's just something to consider. Like, what kind of industry are you in? New Jersey State actually is huge in pharmaceutical. We have many pharmaceutical headquarters. So if pharmacy or pharmaceutical manufacturing, if that's something of your interest, that's also STEM, a New Jersey school would be your top pick. So these are things to also consider, like what kind of industry, where in the United States is most popular that industry is. So those are some tips for your research as well. Lastly, some additional resources. So the first thing is you want to see if your home country governments do offer some assistance. So for example, the United States, the students are allowed to apply. We have FAFSA, and you can apply through the government and they give you financial aid. So that's you can see there's some sort of financial aid, any kind of awards that can come through the state. So, you can always ask, and I'm sure your advisors at EducationUSA can definitely shed some light on awards that they might have or that the state in general would have. So that's one place to start. Another one is the Institute of International Education, IIE, and Fulbright Foreign Student Program. So I actually work with both of these two companies where they do. So what they do is they evaluate students, and what they do is they evaluate students on an overall basis, and they want to see how competitive students are, what background they come from, what's their story, what can they bring, what are their interests, and they want to pick people who they know is going to make a difference truly in the world, and not only advance for themselves, but also in some way like give back. Like, how are their skills going to help things be a little bit better, And with everything going on, that's something that we all want to try to do, right? So these are two other companies that you can look into to see how their awards are granted, how to apply, where to start. So it's IIE and Fulbright. And, I've seen students from all across the world get awards and that have gotten accepted into Stevens. And they've gotten accepted into other great schools as well. So I would take notes on this page as well, so that you have an idea on like who to ask, who to contact, and where to get started.